Hey everybody, Luke from lukefabish.com here. Today I'm going to be talking to you about coding interviews and what employers really want to know. What are they hoping to find out about you during a coding interview? You can read this article in full at the URL below. Head on over to check it out in more detail. And why am I talking to you about coding interviews today? Well, it's because they have a really bad reputation. Apparently everybody is doing them wrong, but they're still the best thing the industry has for hiring programmers. There are a few hiring companies out there that'll tell you that they're doing it better. Maybe they are, but for the most part, there's not much difference between the way different places do their coding interviews. They always come down to two main things that they want to know. Employers want to know, first of all, what you can do, what kind of programmer are you, and second of all, who are you? They want to know what kind of person you are. And this is a lot to ask from what might amount to, at minimum, 2 hours, maybe 6 hours over a few interviews of actual face-to-face time. So let's take a look at a few of the odd things that come up in coding interviews and find out what their purpose actually is. First of all, why are we looking at a picture of a manhole cover? This is in reference to a common feature of coding interviews a few years ago. It doesn't happen so much now, is that the interviewee was peppered with trick questions. Like, why are manhole covers round? This is an infamous one, I think, from Microsoft. The accepted wisdom for the answer to that, by the way, was that it's the only shape that'll guarantee that the cover won't fall inside the hole when you're lifting it up. I always thought it would be like super convenient if you have to move the heavy manhole cover and you can just roll it from one place to another. But anyway, trick questions. And another class of question that is more common still, you'll be asked to answer questions about things that you would probably never really use in your day-to-day programming job, like implementing a quicksort, or how would you implement a merge sort for a linked list, big O analysis of a particular algorithm. It's pretty rare to do that kind of thing in your day-to-day programming job, but still employers ask them, and this is mostly not because they're trying to be difficult, it's just that they need some kind of proof that you are interested enough in programming to have bothered to find out about these things. Maybe you find them interesting, maybe you want to know about them, you want to be a professional programmer. This is the sort of stuff professional programmers know. So it's a kind of a way of screening out people who might not be that serious about a career in programming. So even though it seems kind of crazy to ask these kinds of questions, that's the reason they do it. And another one that comes up a lot in coding interviews is the whiteboard programming session. This is where you are asked to implement something in code, and sometimes they will expect it to be syntactically correct code that they will then type into an interpreter or a text file and compile it and expect it to work. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't spend a lot of time when I'm programming actually drawing code onto a whiteboard before I put it into a computer. So it's not a very realistic scenario for finding out how a person programs. And whiteboard interviews are one of the things that programmers love to complain about, particularly with coding interviews. But there, once again, is a reason for doing this. One is to see if somebody can program without the aid of an IDE or even an advanced programming text editor, which will do syntax completion and things like that for you. But it also actually presents a really good opportunity because this is a chance for you and your interviewers to collaborate on a problem together. So you can start putting up your solution and then they can provide a bit more input. So it's a chance for them to see how you work with other people, how you incorporate ideas into your own work, and how you communicate your understanding of a problem and your understanding and analysis of a solution. And so this is all great stuff to see in action when you're evaluating somebody to see what kind of programmer they are. And moving on to probably an increasingly common way of evaluating a programmer, it's to give them some homework. You go into your interview, you're going to have a chat, and they'll introduce you to some piece of work that they want you to complete in your own time. Now, this is great because it's an opportunity to work in a much more natural setting. And this kind of thing could involve adding some features to an existing project, implementing a whole application, maybe a simple one, or maybe it's just addressing a few issues in a public GitHub project. And once you've done your homework, you can submit it and they can call you back if they think you've done a nice job and go over the work with you. Talk about the commits, talk about the changes, see what you've done, ask about things that you might have done differently under other circumstances. And once again, this is just a way to see how you work, see how you solve problems, and it's better because you get to program the way you normally would. But one thing that can get kind of tough with these is that a project that your interviewing company might say, oh, it'll take, like 2 or 3 hours to finish, and you find you're spending like 12 or 15 hours on it. And that can turn into a big time sink, especially if you're interviewing at a few different places. You're going to have a lot of homework to do. And like the one saving grace here is that some companies have actually started paying their interviewees to do this homework. Now they're paying them a lot. They'll give them like $100 to do the whole thing, not like $100 an hour. But it is a way of making you feel like your time is actually valuable to them. So these are the different ways that companies can find out about what kind of programmer you are. But of course, the next thing they want to know is, well, who are you? This is when we get some of the more usual job interview type questions. And this is all aimed at finding out if you're somebody that they really want their employees to spend a lot of time with. Because if you're in the office, let's say it's like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, depending on where you live, it could be like 50 weeks a year, 48 weeks a year, something like that, then that's a lot of time to have somebody in the office working for the company. And if they don't hire somebody who's going to fit in with the rest of the company and the rest of the workforce, then that can be a major hit for them, because an employee is an investment and they want to know that they're going to get their money's worth. And so the kind of questions they're going to ask are like, why are you interested in this position? Which is a way of basically finding out if you're actually interested in the company and the position, or you're just looking for some job somewhere to get paid for sitting down 8 hours a day. They might also want to know where you're going to be in 5 years, or where do you want to be in 5 years. And this is once again checking to see if you're some kind of professional with career ambitions, and if you're going to be somebody who intends to grow as their investment in the company and provide more value over time. They might also want to know why you're leaving your current position. Are you looking for bigger and better opportunities that your previous position couldn't provide you with? Or did you make lots of enemies and create an intolerable situation where you were last? Because really they want to avoid that sort of situation occurring again with you, don't they? And they might also want to know about how you've dealt with conflict in the past, what you've done to invest in your growth, what areas you want to grow more in, how you prioritize, how you set expectations about the work that you're doing. Maybe you've got too much work on and everybody wants the work at once. How do you deal with that? These are all questions that are aimed to find out what kind of worker or professional person you are when you're conducting yourself in your day-to-day job. These sorts of things really don't have anything much to do specifically with the job of programming, but they want to know how you're going to fit into the workforce, how you're going to grow as an employee, and what value you will bring to the company. Now, once again, finding out what kind of programmer you are and what kind of person you are is a big ask for a series of 1 to 2 hour interviews. And I know some companies will have started doing all day interviews and doing workshops with candidates and all this kind of stuff to really try to find out whether the person that they're hiring is the right person. But it's still an awful lot to find out about a person before hiring them. So just remember, when you go into these coding interviews, they're going to ask you to do some things that are maybe not normal and not part of your day-to-day programming job. And they're going to ask you some things that you might not have thought about carefully if this is your first time going into a coding interview. But remember, there's a really good reason for them, even if they do seem kind of weird. This is the company's way of finding out whether you're somebody they really want to invest in for the long term. So once again, this is a super fast summary of the article on my site, lukefabish.com, on coding interview questions, what employers really want to know. And if you'd like to see more posts like this, remember to click the subscribe button at the bottom of this video. I look forward to seeing you next time.